Mic check, 1, 2.
Tom, use your word.
Hey, you.
That's original freedom.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Original Freedom Podcast. Today we got Max Martini in studio, going to give us a bit of his time. We're going to talk about a lot. One would be just mere friendship and how Max and my brother and I got together. And more importantly, it is Veterans Day.
Yes.
Not by plan. This was actually appeared to be circumstantial, but it's not, right? That you and I are sitting here today after probably about a 5-year friendship that started through Facebook of all places.
Yeah. I was trying to get a movie project going that I eventually did get going, and so not only and I'm sort of at the time I was a newbie to social media, so I was trying to recruit some supporters and veterans and active duty service people, and also find ways for unconventional financing, because 30% of at the time I wanted to give 50% of our film to veteran charities, but we ended up securing 30% of it. It was just extremely difficult in that when you tell investors that you're giving 30% of the profits away, nobody wants to invest, and there wasn't a charitable write-off. We couldn't offer anything other than you're just helping out. So it took. How many years ago did you say it was?
It's got to be close to 5.
Yeah, let's say 5 years ago, and
from the time you started the draft on the original script.
Yeah,
I'd say.
Yeah, and so we at the 11th hour, because it's a Harley trip across the country. The story takes place, a lot of it on a bike, and so it was weather dependent. And at the 11th hour last year, a woman called by the name of Tanya Hill called us up and said, "Hey, I want to give you your money to go make this movie. Here's $2.5 million, and
Is that all?
Go get after it." Yeah,
awesome. So yeah, man. Let me rewind though, and so the name of the movie is Will Gardner, and it's going to premiere.
Sergeant Will Gardner. Changed. Yeah.
Sergeant Will Gardner. That's good. It's good to see the enlisted man represented well.
There you go.
But let's really rewind, man, and take it back to, one, hit the point of it is Veterans Day, and two, I will say that, Max is a friend, and also I want to highlight him as being one of, a minority in the acting world in Hollywood, and that he went out and raised money to make a film to give money away to veterans, and as you said, pretty much unheard of. No one wanted to invest in it. No one wants to give away their profits. This is a profit-driven town, and not only did you get money raised, but you got really big actors. Sinise is in it. Things of this nature. But let's back up. Right, because the good's going to be done, the money will be made, and there's 3 primary veteran-based nonprofits that are going to be the recipients of the profits, a portion of the profits. But I mean, your history in Hollywood has been primarily tied to not only military, but spec ops. So would you take me on a journey down your path in Hollywood that has essentially ended you up famous, for one thing, but two, also now friends with folks in my old community?
Yeah. I think that there was a pivotal moment in my career that really shaped who I am today, and that was probably making Saving Private Ryan. Not playing a tier 1 guy, but I didn't really understand the importance and the significance of warfare, I don't think, and the contribution and the sacrifice that veterans make, and how essential our military is to our way of life here, and prior to that film. Yeah. And I think after having done that, and it wasn't really until, because I remember giving press interviews, this isn't my first,
bastard.
On the red carpet, and having sort of one point of view, and then it completely changing at the end of the premiere, having watched the film for the first time, And having spoken to a dozen or so at my table, World War II veterans, and I remember at that table going, if I could redo those interviews, because it was that moment that I really became clear, and gained a lot of clarity. So I would say that shaped that experience who I am today. And then as a result, I ended up doing these incredible war films. 13 Hours was one. We were talking about that earlier. Captain Phillips, not that it was a war film, but had, played a death group guy. And then as a result, of having done these film projects, my friends are largely military. So, and I have these incredible friends like you and your brother and it's so it's been I would say, it's funny. It's like you as an actor, you spend so much time immersed in your career that it really does kind of dictate who you're going to, it shapes your personality. I don't know. Am I sidetracking? Or?
No, brother, you're doing your thing, man. And what I heard you say was, because you had access to these World War II vets, because you had living, breathing people in front of you to hear them speak and tell their side of the story, so to speak. It's only at that point, it took that point to give you some relevance, right? To make everything relevant as it related to not just warfare, right? But more so about the American soldier. And that's a common thing to occur because most people don't have access, right? What the general population has access to is the news and movies, right? And at the end of the day, neither do justice, truth be told, of the reality. And what happens, I've seen it, I've had friends that were, for sake of argument, total, very liberal folks, and had never known anybody in the military. And then once they got to know me, or I've watched them get to know my brother, all of a sudden they have, to your point, this new perspective. And maybe the thoughts they have aren't quite the same anymore. And maybe the opinions and beliefs they had around veterans and soldiers and warriors and what it is we do and why we do it. And what begins to happen is what I believe happens is some empathy occurs, right? Because there's this veil, there's this illusion that we're different. And we're not. I told a guy one time, I said, hey, I coach soccer. I was like, can you comprehend that I went from having a suicide bomber blow himself up in a building and digging 5 of our buddies out of the rubble, and then 36 hours later being at home with my kids eating breakfast and then going and coaching soccer, and right? And the guy's face is like, what?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, man, real humans just got a different job, just have a different purpose in life. Whereas I believe one of your purposes is to provide that level, that interface, that entertainment, and that's, that one view into what it is we do, yet until you get face to face with people that have done it.
Can I pinpoint something really
Please.
quick? This is so interesting to me anyways, and hopefully to your viewers. So when I was doing The Unit, which was based on,
we know.
Yeah. Our
one little black guy.
Yeah. The Eric Haney, who I guess was one of the original Delta guys, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm pretty sure he's on a list. It's not a nice one.
Right. Of course.
So be it.
Yeah, so be it. But but to his credit, when he cast this show and we started filming, he said, look, we are not going to make a mockery of my experience in the military or anyone else's. You're going to train, you're going to get it right, and there's no room for fuck-ups, And he was militant every single day, that until there was some interference from the network. So I will say that they eventually did. They eventually did come in, and he left.
And he left.
But, I remember, it's like when you're shooting these shows and you're trying to recreate what you do, his whole thing was like, look, you got to go in, you have to get behind your weapon and you go in to combat and you operate. And he goes, I liken it to pouring honey. It's like, it's slow and smooth. It's just boom, 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 boom. And you roll through it. You keep your heart rate down and you move. And, when the bullets aren't real, it's easy to do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so because one of my regrets in life is that, and I've said this before, is that I didn't serve. And it's something, and everybody says, yeah, but you're serving in a different way. And I totally agree with you. But I think that if you have the ability to go into a fight and operate like that, then you sort of have maybe a little bit of a calling into that direction to explore it, if anything, and it just made me think, because I go, why am I getting these fucking roles? Like, why is everybody, why am I like the guy that you're going to choose to get, and as opposed to, the other 5,000 dudes that I'm up against. And I boxed for a long time, and I think it's a similar thing. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but it's, that the battle is kind of within yourself. And you, when you have a guy coming at you, trying to rip your head off, you have to conquer the fear, first of all, and then you have to be able to let's say, even go on defense while he's trying to rip your head off and go, okay, you know what, now that I'm not scared, now that I've conquered myself, my own fear, I can go in and I'm going to start working on maybe getting my breath back, maybe slowing my heart rate down. You know what I mean? Maybe, and then once I've conquered that, I'm pretty much on. So I think to do what you do, my point is that you have to be able to have complete control over your fears, your own limitations that you've set on yourself in terms of where, what you're capable of, how far you can go. I don't know.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think that to me, that comes back where I'd say there's a correlation is just in training. And learning to deal with fears in training, no different than, I'm sure, whether it's, prepping in boxing or prepping before you go on set, prepping before we got on helos. We always said that people don't rise to any occasion. They default to their level of training in stressful situations, right? And so in any stressful situation, that's what we default to. And so in the roles, it's interesting. Yeah, maybe that parlays in, that boxer mindset parlays into. It's the mindset of anyone that has to get entirely focused on one task and one task only, and usually where there's a high probability of loss and the outcome could be bad, right? And that's
it's the warrior mindset, right?
Sure.
Like, I mean,
I mean, it's a mindset. I don't know if I ever master my fear. I just become friends with it, and it's just kind of sitting there. It's like, what's up, bitch? Yeah. And we're going to keep going.
Yeah.
Let me, if you would, let me take us on the path of how, your next movie that you wrote and produced and star in, correct? Mm-hmm. How it all started, right? Because it really started with just a friendship, if my memory serves me.
The idea of what I was going to write about.
Yeah. How did that begin?
While I was shooting The Unit, myself and a few of the actors orchestrated some trips to the Middle East, and so we went over. And again, it was life-changing for us, man. I mean, at that point, I had a large base of friends that were military, and I was a supporter, but I remember getting off of this, C-130 in Iraq, and the first thing that really hit me was how young everybody was. Because I don't think that we here realize that so much of our military is, somewhere probably between 18 and 23, it seemed.
Massive amount.
Yeah.
Massive numbers.
So that was a shocker for me, and returning from Iraq, I was waiting for a C-130 standing on this tarmac, and I saw this guy looking at me, and I smiled, waved him over, and he was a fan of the show, and we started talking. big dude, Army Ranger, you know, like just jacked, tats, and not scared of shit. So we started talking, we exchanged information, you know, we talked for a while, and we kept in contact. So when I got back, I would say maybe 4 months into just shooting random emails to each other, he started to kind of springboard some thoughts off of me. He had survived a couple IEDs. He was having emotionally, he was destroyed.
Yeah.
He couldn't sleep. He was having anger issues. He was, you know, he was petrified to go forward and ask for help. And you know, and I didn't have any answers, you know, so.
Pretty helpless feeling.
Yeah, completely helpless. So, you know, I started trying to figure out what I had to contribute. And, you know, later on I thought, you know, like as an actor, we have this incredible, stage and audience from which to speak. And you know, and if there was a way that I could inspire people to give back, and this, like you said, in Hollywood was a completely new concept to create a film that was going to give back, because it never happens. I don't know if it's ever happened. And so I wrote this story with that in mind, and just kind of started this journey, man. And I asked him if I could, you know, now the movie has zero to do with his experiences, but it was inspired by our relationship. And I'll tell you why, because at a certain point, there was a version of the story that was very heavy-handed. And I had a lot of veterans that I was bouncing ideas off of, say, yeah, but you have to deal with veteran suicide. You have to deal with this. You have to deal with that. You know, the problem is that it's not a documentary. It's still a movie, you know. And so I had to find a balance to where there was humor in it, which everybody that I know that served has, you know,
there's humor
they're hilarious.
In the darkest of times,
oh God,
brother.
hilarity. And you know, but it also has to resonate, and it has to have a message that will leave the audience wanting to get involved, you know, and give. And so I think I did that successfully. But to answer your question, so yeah, it was inspired. There was a friendship, and we're still friends.
Nice.
And there's some combat sequences in the film, and my friend is in the combat sequences. And
beautiful.
We were shooting them, and we had to stop. At one point, he had disappeared, and he was off to the side, just.
Yeah, man. Shit gets real.
That was a joke, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, bro. That's the thing about all this stuff, man, is you know, what it is that you do get to do and represent is real. You know, and that's the part where it's really cool that you've taken the time to invest in friendships with dudes like me, and those in my community, because I'm pretty damn sure that your Hollywood other actor friends don't roll with a lot of cats like us.
Well, you know, right. Yeah, they definitely don't roll with cats like you. But, you know, I will say this, that when I was putting this movie together, we started with the cast. And so I would Skype. We had a casting director that was just going, hey, this person would be great in it. This person would be great in it. Everybody that I put in this film, from the crew to the cast, wanted to be involved in this film, no matter what the pay was, it was all about giving back to veterans. So I think that in Hollywood, there's not a lot of people that speak out.
Yeah.
I know that there are people that get involved, but it's just, I was shocked that the people that I needed, and maybe it was, you know, some sort of divine intervention, I don't know, but somebody somehow these people were put in front of me, and they're amazing in the movie. There isn't a bullshit moment in the entire film. And Gary Sinise, for instance, there's nobody in Hollywood that does more for veterans than he does.
Agreed.
and there's nobody that comes close. I would love to get to that level. Robert Patrick is a huge supporter. He and Gary are in the same, I would say the three of us that and my friendship, base of friends are, actively trying to help. But one of our castmates actually served. He was in the Army. He jumped out of a plane, static line. His chute got tangled or didn't open. He bounced. And he walked in and he was like, man, he was living out of his car. God.
Didn't see this coming up.
I'm supposed to be. Yeah, I know. This is
welcome to the club.
Anyway,
that's good. You're crying and I'm not.
Buddy,
I like it.
God Almighty. He was living out of his car, and I called him to say that we were going to give him this part in this movie, and he just started bawling. So anyway, all right.
Yeah, man. And let me rewind just a hair. It's not even so much that I believe that Hollywood. Not a lot of people in Hollywood that don't support the military.
Yeah.
I do believe, though, to your point, there are more that don't talk about it. And the other part of that, as I would say, is there's plenty that, even if they don't, they have the same dilemma that you have. And what that is stories we make up in our head. And I say we because it's me as well, about other people, right? So I've sat and watched movies my whole life, and I make up stories in my head about actors and who they are and who they aren't and what they think and what they don't. Sure. And they, the same token, sit and either watch the news, watch other movies about what soldiers, warriors, whatever it is, are or not. And they make stories up in their head. And what I've come to find out is the gap gets bridged really fast when you put just two fucking human beings in a room and let them get to know one another, and get to find out and get to the core of life, and the human side of life, because at the end of the day, we're all more similar than we are different.
100%.
And I do believe, actually, the Hollywood plays a large portion in maintaining a certain aspect of our military, and that it's a PR and marketing, man. You guys are part of the reason our recruiters literally, have more people join.
Dude, I have gotten so many Facebook messages and or Twitter messages or whatever saying you're the reason I joined the military. I'm like, oh my God, come on.
Kind of ironic,
right? But it's so ironic.
It's ironic,
but you're right. They're watching.
So good is being done, so it's irrelevant. Yeah. And I just, the beauty of technology even today, right? I would challenge anyone who acts in films depicting military folks to spend time with them. Yeah. Get to know them. Get to hear the other side of it, right? The real life, the folks that, the reason why you're doing what you're doing with this movie, the folks that come home and have to start life anew.
Right.
And with this new mindset, this new way of being, I've heard people complain about it, but I call it the new normal. People make the statement of, "Hey, when are you going to get back to the way you were?" Fucking never.
Right.
When are you going to get back to the way you were when you were 16 at prom? Well, never. Yeah. Right. I am the way I am now, and what Tom and I have been passionate about for a lot of years, and part of the reason we've met is, raising the awareness around veteran suicide rate, which used to be 22 a day, is now it's dropped to, I think, like 20 and a half. There's a dent being made, right? If you look at the time since we met in the last 5 years, even the stigma around PTSD, traumatic brain injury, veteran suicide, just even the thought of it, to your point, all these things, they're out there. People are just unaware. Right, that you got onto the battlefield, and you're like, wow, the majority of our force is 18 to 23 years old. What the hell were you doing at 18 to 23, right? Most people were out raising hell. And these folks, I had it easy, I'd say. I joined at 18, but I didn't go to combat for another 11 years, right? We're taking kids out of high school and putting them on the battlefield.
Well, that's a great point. If I can just interject,
that is
our military, and I don't know, is entirely, I would imagine, voluntary at this point. Like there's no,
has been
like
for many years.
everybody.
Yeah, it's
so
volunteer force.
no, I mean like that's Anyway, so but if you're recruiting kids from strip malls, and I say kids, like 100% of the kids, and you're throwing them onto the front lines. At a certain point in the war, there was hardly probably any time for basic. I mean, like you're basically just pulling them from basic and throwing them out there. I would think. I mean, we were short, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same flash to bang, if you will, no different than it was in any other war. Yeah. The difference is, to your point, which is huge, is that it's voluntary.
It's voluntary. So if you want to keep it voluntary, you have to take care of your men and women when they come home.
Well, and that's the part where I'd say, with 100% conviction, that we suck.
Right.
As a nation.
Yeah.
And if you want to break it down to something, just hit me the other day. It's like, wow. Between all the different selections that I went through, and psych evals and training and millions of dollars of investment on the front end, and a fucking pat on the ass on the way out.
Yep.
Just think about that, right? See, how is it you invest this much on the front end in something, and then backside's nothing. Nothing's there. I mean, there should literally be, like, anyone coming out of Spec Ops, there should be a 12-month program. But then what they'd say, it's a part of the government. So, we'd have to give that to everybody then. Well, shit, you didn't make everybody go through selection.
Right.
Right. So that's I'll get on my soapbox of the bullshit here in a minute if I don't watch myself. But I'll get us back on course, right? Because at the end of the day, what you represent and now I represent, and collectively we represent, is free Americans that are doing the best we can with the platforms that we have. Tom and I now have this, and tapped into you, the beauty of connectivity and communication that we have to raise awareness, to wake everyone up as to what's going on, because there's really no reason why it can't be better. And it is. It's getting better. And it will take the private citizen. It will take more actors. It will take more of me's, more Nate's, more Tom's, more all of us to get this thing right. And we've been fucking it up a lot of years. So we
have to do it because it's not front page news anymore. It should be, it should be until it's fixed. But it's not. So it does take people, like us to actually keep pushing the urgency, and the one thing I'm going to backtrack a little bit, but there's a lot of people that say that they support the troops, and then there's people that actually are doers, that are actually getting their hands dirty and getting involved, and we need more of that. And these are approximate numbers, but I think there's an average of 50,000 American soldiers homeless on the streets at any given moment. There's 300 and some odd thousand diagnosed cases of combat-related TBIs. I know that there was a report that came out in 2015 that said that stated there were over 300,000 deaths of soldiers awaiting healthcare claims. There's no excuse. Zero excuse. This is tragic. Those are tragic numbers. And so anyway, yes, that's we need more. We need to rally more support.
If I can hit on that, Max, I can't imagine the amount of time, energy, you kind of hit on the money that goes into making a film, producing a film. And even in the same vein of you talking about people being doers or people saying they support, how passionate, if you can put into terms on this topic, were you to actually not only have the idea, but have the follow through and put in all that work and grind to get that actually done? And now, come January, people will be able to see that product.
I mean, you see me, I can barely get through a talk without, choking on emotion, but I was very passionate about it. I was more so passionate about it when friends of mine were suffering, and and I'm passionate about doing something for my country. I'm very proud of this country, and I think that, if you don't appreciate it, leave and see what the options are, and then, fucking come back, because the door's open. So it's just, this is a major accomplishment. I hope it's successful. I think it will be. I think it has all the elements. I know that the company that bought my movie is behind it in such a big way, and they've hired this amazing PR firm to help us get the message out. And so if I can start getting money to Scott's Brothers charity, Tom, to Warrior's Heart, and the Gary Sinise Foundation, which does amazing work, and another charity called Higher Ground, which uses recreational therapy to assist soldiers suffering, it'll be a success.
It will be, brother. And it just hit me. Think about what you just said, right? When we met, Warrior's Heart didn't exist. None of this existed, right? And you just got done saying that, boom, you wrote, made a movie, it's coming out, 3 nonprofits are going to get funding. One of them happens to be my brother's at Warrior's Heart, right? Next to that, he's sitting beside Gary Sinise Foundation, right? And then this third, Higher Ground, yeah. Right? Yeah. That's all been a byproduct of nothing but effort.
Yeah.
In the face of effort in a world where, you're in a place where it's not widely accepted to get funding. My brother's in a space where it's not widely accepted for vets to ask for help, yet, through action, right? Not bullshit, not, hey, we love the troops, not, hey, let's film one more halftime show of bringing one person home and let the crowd fucking go wild. That's all good and fun and feel good, and it represents like this much reality.
Yeah.
This much reality, right?
Yeah.
You've been willing to take a look at the darker side, the life side of it, and you've been willing to put your own reputation on the line. I mean, let's face it, whenever you do things to stand out, that's what happens. You often get left out. And it's so cool to see you literally sharing space with Gary Sinise. To your point, he wrote the opening to my buddy Brian Anderson's book, Point of No Return. Brian goes to see Lieutenant Dan Band all the time, and he tells me stories. He's been sitting up at Walter Reed for I don't know how many years, right? Silently, action, right? And now you're part of that crew that I think, I don't know if Gary's the leader of it, but he damn well ought to be.
I think he is.
And and recruit as many more as he can, because what I as a veteran love to see is actors in Hollywood that give a shit about getting it right, that give a shit about respecting those who do it, and to give them the respect and reverence that they deserve. And you're doing that, brother. So I appreciate it, and I believe on behalf of a lot of different vets, we appreciate it and what you do for our community. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm trying. It's funny. That there's a slight sigh of relief in that I've got this thing shot, and it's done, and now I can kind of let it go. I'm gonna do some PR, but hopefully. The next step is delivering checks, and I want to bring the media in, and like I haven't even discussed this with Tom yet, or with the other charities, but let people see the give back. Because I think that's important. It's like, oh yeah, he did this movie for charity, and then you never hear about it again. But if they see, maybe that inspires somebody to do another one for some other cause or whatever, But it also, brings light to the charities and what they're doing and their work, and it's back getting things to the front page a little bit, and I think it's important, and I think that's the next part of that story. And then, my next chapter will be, something completely different. So we'll see.
Well, I kind of tease up, if you don't mind, maybe a closeout question would be, What's some advice, or not advice? What's some? No one likes to hear advice unsolicited, and no one's asking you.
Yeah.
So, what's some wisdom that you would share if you could say to other actors right now who play roles that are in the military world and make these movies, or that shy away from them for any reasons, like through your experience in all your roles and meeting folks like me and those like me, what would you say to them moving forward in their careers as it relates to helping give back?
I mean, I think I think that an actor that isn't driven to charitable work, can give back, just in an honest performance, but like anything, you have to work to figure out how to do that. You have to, like, what things that have helped me in the past is, one, like knowing you. I played Mark Geist in 13 Hours. Mark and I spent a lot of time together before I got on screen, and I remember, like, and you have to do this kind of research, but I remember, like, we got onto the phone, on a phone call initially when I first got the part, and at the end of an hour, I knew who this guy was as a man. I knew who he was as a father. I knew who he was as a husband. I knew why he joined the military. I knew why he was a cop. I knew why, it starts to come together. You figure out what motivated that person. And it's like what Eric Haney said, don't make a mockery of it, because from the guy that you're portraying to his wife, who fights a completely separate battle. By the way, this is interesting. So, they care. When I was at the 13 Hours premiere, and I tell this story often because I think it's important, is that there were Mark Geist's wife and Tig's wife and a group of ladies weren't in the stadium to watch the film. They were in the bar at a table, and I came in. I was going to the restroom because I had seen the film, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And they could not watch it. They couldn't relive it, and not knowing if your husband's coming home, not knowing what's happening overseas, not knowing what your future is, that's a tough one. And so, not only should these women be applauded, but my point is that it's important to everybody across the board, because so much of this country is comprised of people with connections to the military, maybe direct, indirect, and you have to care. So that's my advice: is give a shit. If you can't check your ego at the door, don't do it. Don't take the job, and go get on a soap or something.
Max, I want to thank you for giving us your time today, man.
Thank you.
It's been always good to see you. Sergeant Will Gardner coming out January 2019. Comes
out January 11th. People can follow us for updates on Instagram at Sergeant Will Gardner the movie. And I'll be posting there. And yeah, please support us. We need to get our investors paid back and start getting money to soldiers in need. So,
and the 3 different nonprofits that they will be supporting will be what?
Warrior's Heart, Higher Ground, and the Gary Sinise Foundation, each receiving 10% of the film's profits. And yeah.
All right. So, and with that being said, thanks a lot for joining us today. Max, thanks for being here. Brother Nate, good to have you in town. It's Veterans Day, and want to give a special thanks to all the veterans out there. And Max, to your point, all the families of veterans who serve even more so. Thanks for tuning in with us here today on the Original Freedom Podcast. Happy Veterans Day. Enjoy the rest of your Veterans Day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.